problems. But
Yeah.
let's hope today all goes well. That's just what I'm hoping. But if
Yes.
something goes wrong, forgive me if I disappear halfway through because of the connection.
Listen, hopefully nothing will go wrong. Let us be totally positive
Yeah,
and look forward to whoever is going to join us. It's not
yeah,
quite time yet. I
no,
know that Simon won't be joining us because he's actually on another, I don't know. Oh dear, hang on. Oh, it's just remind me to take my tablets. I've already taken them. Yes, he's on some form of exhibition of some description, which is virtual. So I don't know what it's all about, but no doubt I'll speak to him later and I'll find out. But
yeah.
there we are, never mind. Anyway, how are you, Joanne, today?
I'm okay, thank you. Yes.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Got everything done that you wanted to get done?
Yes, pretty much. Yes.
Good, 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 good. What about you, Shiraz? How are you? Have you got all your work done that you were hoping to do, or are you completely snowed under?
Well, basically, at the moment, because no clients are coming. There's no people seeking legal advice. And so
Freezing again.
association, we do quite a bit of work online or on the phone. So that's where I've been busy.
Right. Oh, we've got Steve. Steve, I'm going to have to keep an eye on the right-hand side here because it's this blooming admitting business. So, hi, good afternoon, Steve.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Steve, have you met Shiraz?
No.
No. Right.
Go down in the bottom corner down there. Sorry.
I'm always in the bottom corner, but never mind. Nobody ever takes any notice whatsoever, especially the children and the grandchildren. I'm just waiting for the great grandchildren to take no notice of me, and then I'll be in trouble.
I have that. My wife doesn't take any notice of me.
I see.
It's a learning curve.
I think we're all on a learning curve. I'm getting a lot of people coming on to me saying, where do you think it's going to go? When do you think it's going to end? When can I get back into doing things and what have you? And quite honestly, whatever comes out of the government's mouth is going to be right for some people, wrong for others. And that's exactly the same in business. I was listening to the chief executive operating officer of Heathrow Airport this morning, saying, he's getting set up to do testing when they come in, and he's suggesting the government then allows them to do testing in 3 or 4 days' time, instead of having to self-isolate. But again, what's right, what's wrong? We can only go on what really the scientists are saying to us. But there we are. So how is university with you, Steve? Are you still at it?
What they say is you progress. So I have progressed to the 3rd year, which is my final year.
Right.
So we just had to wait for the results, and so they've said I've passed. So I go through to the 3rd year, but we don't go back till the 28th of September.
So do you think this is going to be in class or over as some form of Zoom, or what? What have they said at your university?
Well, I've got my I'm going to just glance over there at my timetable. Firstly, we have a 21st of September is hello and welcome to the final year. 28th of September starts 8 weeks of teaching, and in nutrition, that'll be 1 day a week.
Right.
That 8 weeks from the 28th of September takes us through to the 11th of January. We only have 8 weeks before I know there's more weeks, but they're only going to teach us 8 weeks right through to the 11th of January.
So
and that's just a little less than half the year. And so what we're going to get from it, I mean, we're getting very little other than the teaching and the results, but it's still £9,000.
Yeah. So basically, we're all, a lot of people are going to be in the same boat, and a lot of people,
online, Jeff. Online, it'll be.
I think it's got to be online to a point. And do they, or can they, or will they adjust any of the fees? We don't know. So we'll just have to wait and see. What about you, Sharaj? You've been to enough universities with all your degrees. What do you think with regard to these proceedings that are likely to take place with the universities and the teaching?
You're freezing up.
Sorry?
You're freezing. The screen is freezing intermittently and not picking you up. Is it at your end or my end?
Your end.
I think so, because I did get a warning a little while ago saying your internet connection is unstable. But what do you do about it? When you complain, they don't bother to do anything about it.
Change your internet connection. Go to another provider.
Change your house.
Bit
Oh, very
drastic,
practical.
Steve.
Very practical.
Yeah.
So you were asking me about the university, something?
Yeah, the teaching of, sort of Steve was just saying a lot. It looks as though a lot of it's going to be going online. And how is it going to sort of work? We don't know. What are the costs going to be? One certainly very big implication, especially into the Liverpool universities, will be the amount of Chinese people who really feed a phenomenal amount of money into Liverpool University and John Moores University. And they're not going to be coming over.
It's just the UK students that pay 9,250. International students could be paying 25,000.
Yeah.
I don't know what they pay, but they pay an awful lot. And when there's no decision, I mean, even on our course, our modules, people live in Belfast and they live in Wales, etc. Foreign students are Hungarian, Italian, all on our module. Are they, if it's online, where are they going to be for the first half of the year? Will they take up residence in Liverpool, or will they not?
Very difficult, very difficult. I've got a grandson who's in Sheffield, and he doesn't really know. He's hung on with his two friends to the accommodation and the house they've got, but he doesn't quite know what is going to happen in September, even now. So it's one of those horrible things. Well, look, we'll get started, because obviously I'm not too sure who's going to be joining us. Never am. But the Stolworths are with us anyway, so that's the main thing. Now, have you all got a copy of my core values? Yes, and all right then, all right. Did you get your copy, Steve? You should have done.
No.
You are on my blog site, aren't you? You do get my blogs.
Yes, but although I've read it, I've read, but I haven't. I'm thinking out loud where the core values are. I don't know whether. I don't think I've downloaded the PDF.
Okay, don't worry.
I think I've read it though. I don't know.
Is that the empowerment one? All those values?
The core values.
Yeah.
You've got that. You've got that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's just look at core values, because I think when we're born with basically nothing. So our core values really are passed down to us from our parents. I think that's fairly logical to accept. So consequently, throughout our life, we base our morals, our actions, our way of working, our development, etc., from those core values. I certainly did. So what I'm going to ask now is very, you know, in a couple of words, not too many, please. What do you think you learned from your parents before the age of 12, should we say? Who'd like to kick it off?
Yeah, please carry on.
Go on, Joan.
Well, the difference between right and wrong. My parents in particular, very strong on honesty. In some people might say too honest for their own good, and I followed that as well. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you might find that you, it sounds funny, may lose out because of that. But I'm not going to change now. But yeah, that would be the key one, I think, for me.
Jez, what do you think?
Well, I had the same sort of upbringing. There was stress on honesty, telling the truth. My father was a judge, but he condemned corruption. And there was plenty of law around the house because of him. And of course, hard work, education, gaining knowledge, and respecting people, respecting elders. Those were the usual values that you got.
Yeah. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I was brought up with honesty and respect for parents. You know, that was it. Yeah.
And I've got to agree, you know, although my father died when I was 10, I was brought up with exactly the same values that you've just been talked about, because I think that's what life is all about. Things changed a little bit when when my dad died, and my mother brought my brother and myself up, my elder brother and myself up. But the core values still stayed with me right the way through my apprenticeship, etc. So I've got to agree with regard there. So what would you say the core values are with regard to the qualities? Now, there's a full list of them, and I can see Joanne's eyes going down to the page to see if she can pick any of those books.
Can I just say, I've only got the brief outline. I haven't had the PDF.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Because I was looking for it this morning, to be honest, and I wasn't quite sure where it was. So
oh, right. Well, I'll send it. I'll send the full copy out. But have you got the full copy, Sinead?
No.
Steve, no, you haven't.
Well, I've just put it up on. I've just been onto it now. It was 4 pages. Is that the full copy?
Yep, and it should end with the ways I can help.
Yeah, I've just sent it to the printer, the 4 pages. So I haven't.
Okay,
I don't,
right. Well, if it's 4 pages, that's correct, because
I opened it on the blog. Is that where it was?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got that too. I've got the 4 pages. I thought you meant something bigger than that.
No. Not for this particular issue. Right. Well, if you've got it, basically, examples of core values would be ambition, complacency, individuality, equality, integrity, service, responsibility, respect, dedication, diversity. Can anybody else add more? There are so many, it is really amazing.
Creativity.
Yes.
Accountability.
Yes.
Credibility.
Yes.
Optimism and positivism, or positivity.
Yes. Okay. Definitely there are certain ones that one sort of I like to look at: friendliness, discipline, order, generosity, persistency, dependability. And I think that dependability to me is quite an important one, because people look up to you. And as Sinead says, her father was a judge, so therefore she looked up to him, and many people would have looked up to them. And I think that's important. And I think we all understand the importance of people being dependent on us. I don't mean financially dependent on us. I don't mean any of that sort of thing. What I mean is when you speak, people really can trust you because they can depend on what you're saying, hopefully, what you're doing, again, hopefully, and what you write or speak or put out into the big wide world. One of the problems I'm finding with regard to the internet, Facebook, Twitter, Zoo, all these things, that people are engaging this before the brain and sending off all sorts of things into the ether that go everywhere and are stored all places and then forget about it. I remember reading an article a couple of years ago in the Times, and it was basically about university students going for interviews. And there was a very, very successful student, finished with a first degree in law and went for an interview actually in a Liverpool solicitors, an international one. And basically he got the job. He was told at the interview, "You've got the job, but we've got to do some more research and blah, 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 blah." And then he complained because they turned him down. Now, under the law, if you're turned down, you can ask for the reasons why. And the reason was that a few years ago, he'd put some very, very silly comments, photographs at a party that he'd been to at the university. And they were quite degrading and they're not very pleasant. So therefore, the solicitors turned around and said, if anybody actually searches you because they are wanting to do something with you and get out of something, and then they research you and they find this online, they're not going to trust you. And therefore, if they can't trust you, how can we as a company do that? Yes. So I've always tried to say to people, please, please be very careful what you put up online, because it can come round and bite you in the butt. Okay, moving on. Sermon over with regard to that one, but I think it's desperately important that we do realize and understand what the internet is all about. None of us knew this 20 years ago, for heaven's sake. Any comments with regard to that? Has anybody heard of it?
Well, yes, no. I agree. Professionalism and reputation are very important, especially in my professions, in medicine and law. If you have a reputation for having done something unprofessional or inappropriate, it does go against you and does get in the way of your career progress.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. But you try to defend them, though.
No, I find some of them are indefensible. I've had clients who've committed some atrocious
You're frozen, sorry.
So there I offer troubleshooting solutions.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's okay. I was joshing there, but
where the problem is indefensible. Ways to salvage their career out in something else. But we find that some of these people are very stubborn. The best thing for them to do is show remorse, say it was an error of judgment, they won't do it again. No, they keep arguing and trying to justify a behavior which is not acceptable to anyone else. And then, of course, that's the end of their careers.
Yeah. That reminds me, because my father wasn't around, an uncle of mine was, and he always said to me when I got my driving license, Jeffrey, if you're pulled up by a policeman, whatever you were doing, whether you were speeding, whatever it was, show remorse. Do not be rude. Do not be silly. Do not be... And that's exactly the same thing. Joanne, you were going to say something.
Well, all I was going to say was when I worked for the Housing Association, I used to have to deliver the what they call professional boundaries training, because it used to be on a lighter note. Well, I did about social media for a start, and I gave examples about people putting stuff on, so that it highlighted the fact that you know, it is seen by different people. And obviously I was based in HR as well, so I used to hear quite a few things. But also the apprentices, for instance, who were going into people's houses and accepting things. It was all around behaviour. And people don't always understand the implications, that's all.
So what was that called? Professional
boundaries.
Professional boundaries. I'm writing that down. And
I think in medical,
I think you know why, Joanne.
Medical ethics.
Yes, yes. Steve, what about you?
I agree. I agree, and I understand what the conversation is. I suppose people of my age say this all the time. Is it an age thing that I understand? But do younger people understand?
Having 7 children, 8 grandchildren. I've forgotten how many I've got altogether. Actually, it's 11. What am I on about? I'm getting the wrong one. Anyway, never mind. So far, the older ones, the children and the grandchildren, have, to the best of my knowledge, have all kept their noses clean. Some of the grandchildren have gone into very good jobs. Some of them are at university, which is great. And I just hope they're keeping clean. Their mothers have said they are. And I have to believe them. So I would say to you, Steve, on that one, is it an age thing? Yes, because we've been brought up with a fairly strict set of values. We've tried to pass those on to our children. Hopefully our children will pass those on to our grandchildren. And we can only, you know, hand on heart and say, you know, hopefully everything will be all right. That's my comment. About anybody else who wants to make a comment with regard to that.
No, I think you're fair. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I would say that there's a lot to do with the parenting skills, because I know my parents were considered quite old for me. So my peers' parents are all a lot younger. And I know that I was brought up more strictly. I say strictly, just different values and, you know, so.
Yeah,
fashioned way.
Yeah, were you an only child?
I was an only child. Yeah, I am an only child. Yes.
Yeah, this often happens with only children. They either get totally spoiled, or they're under strict control. It's one of those things. It's one of those things.
I was spoilt with love, but I wasn't spoilt with material things. I had to earn things the old-fashioned way. Yeah.
I think regarding age, there's one thing I'd like to point out, that I think people of our generation had stricter values. The youngsters now tend not to have the same values, a lot of things which we see as wrong seem perfectly okay to them. And that is why a lot of them commit much more inappropriate behavior. They are less polite, less respectful, abusive on social media, and they tend to know everything, which is, of course, the tendency the young have.
Yes, yes. But one of the
But
things is,
values are dropping, and the difference between right and wrong is being blurred.
yes, it's becoming very grey.
Hmm.
You know, this is one of the sad parts. But the thing is, I know people don't like me saying this, but I do believe it is the attitude of the Americans' attitude coming into this country, the laws being changed, and we've got two lawyers here, the law being changed with regard to no win, no fee. And consequently, we've come into a society now where people are frightened to discipline. They're frightened. A bus driver would really tell you off on a bus when I was young.
Mm.
And if we did not wear our caps until we walked through the door at home and we were reported, we were told off by the school and by the parents. So consequently, that discipline that we were brought up with hasn't unfortunately carried through because of the liberal society that we're in. Teachers cannot turn round. I don't mean rapping you on the knuckles and giving you the cane and things like that. It certainly went on in my day. But the fact of the matter is, you were disciplined and you accepted that discipline. If a policeman told you off for any reason whatsoever, I was caught scrumping once, picking apples from somebody's garden because the peer pressure, I was only about 8 or 9. So I was told off by the policeman. Somehow it got round to my parents. And by heavens, did I get it in the neck from them. Now that's what that's what I'd love it to be now, but it is not.
No, that's right.
Yeah, the teachers don't stand a chance, because I've got a friend who was a teacher, and it's gone too much the other way. It's when I was a child, and it didn't happen very often because I was a bit of a goody two shoes, but if I did something wrong, my parents would side with the teachers. You know, they wouldn't say, oh, why are you having a go at Joanne? I'm sure she didn't do anything wrong. But nowadays, the parents go into the school and have a go at the teachers because their little one couldn't possibly have done anything wrong.
No, quite.
I'll give you an example of that. A friend of mine, her son is learning kickboxing. And in school one day, he had a fight with a boy. He kicked the boy and he kicked the door down. And when the school called her and they excluded him, she defended her son, just as parents do nowadays. She argued that he had done nothing wrong and the door was not strong enough, which is why the door broke. But the fact that her son had done something wrong was not acceptable to her. So parents tend to defend bad behavior, and that's why bad behavior is getting worse. It's getting encouragement.
I've got to agree. My grandson, Sam, he doesn't do it now, the one at university in Sheffield. They did taekwondo. And when he was younger, he represented and he went over to Germany and France on a couple of occasions. And he was very good. But Sarah, my daughter, also did it as well. But one thing that they told me at the very beginning was the person that ran, I think they call it a dojo or something like that, turned around and said, this is not for you to go out and do in the street. This is for discipline. This is for coordination. And this is for health reasons, mental reasons. And if I find, and it comes back to me, you will be thrown out of the club. And I thought to myself, that's very similar to what Captain Lowe of the 66 Boys Brigade used to say to the boys when I joined the Boys Brigade when I was, I think, about 11 or 10, I can't remember which. don't get yourself into trouble, because you'll get it in the neck from here as well, and you'll be thrown out of the Boys Brigade. And to me, that was, oh, I don't want to be thrown out of the Boys Brigade. So I became, I thought I was a good boy. Well, I don't know whether I was or not, but never mind. Probably not, but I don't know. Yeah, that's important. Why identify and establish your core values? That's one of the things I've put down here. Why do you identify them and use them?
To be successful, to do better.
Yep. Okay. Steve?
It's a focus. It's a focus that I can deliver in like a business situation. It's a high standard to keep to.
Yeah. Joanne?
It's also a guide for making decisions, because if you come across a decision you've got to make and you're struggling, but it doesn't sit well with your values, then that's an indicator not to do it. Yeah.
I think summing that up, that is absolutely true, because if you're in business or you're working for a corporation or working for a small business, they rely on your judgments, your way of working, your attitude, whether that's an attitude of being a helpful person, whether that's an attitude of being somebody who is very, very, very good at keeping your workstation or your office completely tidy, etc., etc. You're bringing your core values into play in the work you're doing, either the work you're doing for the corporation, the company, more importantly, for your clients. Now, each one of us here deals with clients. So therefore, we've got to have those core values and try and work within those parameters. And yes, Joanne, I think mentioned it before. Sometimes, how do I make this decision? And I don't know whether I was speaking to Joanne the other week or whether it was on a call. And I said to her, Churchill had a way of doing things during the war. It was balancing the yes from the no. And if the yes was up here, then it was worth doing the job. If the no's were there, rethink the strategy that you've just decided on and redress it if you're really wanting to do it. What I'm meaning by that is I have lived my life basically trying to balance whether it's right or whether it's wrong, whether I should do this, whether I should do that, whether I should buy this car, whether I should not buy this car, whether I should buy this house or not buy this house. We've all made these decisions. What do we go on when we're buying a house, buying a car, or buying equipment of any description? We're looking at the features of what it is, what the benefits it's going to gain us outweigh the features. We've all got features. We all have this innate situation whereby, yes, I want it, but will it cover and give me what I need? So therefore, it is important. And that comes to that same decision making of yes, no, don't sit on the fence. Don't procrastinate. If you think it is no, then it is no. If you think it is yes, then it is yes. Now that to me is again the core values that you've got inside you. Am I doing it correctly? Am I not doing it correctly? And I'd like comments on that, please, because I covered quite a bit in that little speech.
I think what I meant about the decision making is if you feel that something's not right. I'm not talking about benefits necessarily or features, but something doesn't sit well you're not quite sure of the background of something, and it wouldn't go, if you went along with it, it might go against something that you feel quite strongly about.
Yes.
Put that very well, but
No.
I'm trying to think of an example, really. I don't know, supposing you decide you were asked to sponsor a product and you didn't really believe in it because you didn't eat McDonald's or whatever it might be, but you went along because you took it for the money, you took it on for the money rather than actually believing in the product. That sort of thing would be going against what you really believe in, not being true to yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think that you should know what you want in the first instance. You're going to do something or get something new. You first need to be clear about what you actually want and what you're looking for. And probably make a checklist as well. And then go and have a look and see what's available and whether it meets your requirements.
Yes.
But if you're hazy about what you want, you'll always pick the wrong product.
Yeah. Steve.
Yeah, I'm going to say what you done, Jeff. You know, this balance, and you know, with your hands, yes, no. Your values, your ideas might be high, but they're not meeting the client's requirements. So your values are going to change again. It's not what you're offering, it's what they require. And so if they know what they require, it's selling, not selling, it's supplying what they require. And that gives you a better balance. Once you're up here, you can supply what they wanted, and once they know it's right, the balance is better.
Okay.
Right.
I'm going to give you an example from donkey's years ago when I was quite a young man. I took the Land Rover all the way through to Marrakesh, 3-week journey from Liverpool all the way through. And when we crossed over, because in those days you had to go to Algeciras in southern Spain to get the ferry to go across to Ceuta. And then when you got to Ceuta, you had to drive 30 miles inland, 30 miles back to get to Tangier because there wasn't a ferry going from Algeciras direct to Tangier. It had to go through the French port of Ceuta. And I can always remember the journey from Ceuta through before I took the loop. And I was driving. It was my vehicle, so I was driving. And all of a sudden, I started to smell something. And I said to somebody, that's not my pipe. Because I used to smoke a pipe for 40 odd years. That's not my pipe. What is it? And somebody turned around and said, oh, do you want some, Jeffrey? And I said, what is it? And then it dawned on me what it was. And I thought, no way, Jose. And I said to everybody, how many of you have got that stuff? And there were a couple put their hands up. And I said, well, as far as I'm concerned, if you don't dump it now, I'm going to stop the car, stop the vehicle, and you're getting out, and we'll climb up on the roof and get your rucksacks, and that's it. Now, that was my value at the time. I didn't know what it was. I'd only heard about it. I suppose in a way my pipe was probably just as bad, but I'd heard so many stories about people having things planted in their vehicle in Tangier, having had them repaired, coming out at Algeciras, and the Guardia Civil picking them up and throwing them in jail. Everybody in the vehicle would have been thrown in because it used to be a trait that they did. If you had a vehicle problem, you went to the garage, and the garage put it somewhere. Then they rang up and said, this is where it is. and a kickback came all the way from the police. It was just amazing. That's one value. And it really hurt me. And I really hope that none of my children, I don't think I've ever done it, and grandchildren, but it is a value that we've instilled into my children. And I'm sure that would be the same with all of you. Moving on. In your core values, you've got to be able to set a successful journey. And we've talked about journeys before. A journey really never comes to an end, because life is one big journey. Your business is one big journey. You can plan for your journey from A to B. You may be driving from here to Poole Harbour, and your journey is on the way. You need fuel, you need to go to the loo, you need to eat. So you plan that all out. But this is not the same. Life is a journey. Your business that you're in at the moment is a journey. You don't know where that journey is going to take you. So all the time you're on that journey, from your age of 15 up to 70, 80, whatever it may be, you're using your core values that have been inbuilt into you. So your goals for that journey are sticking to those core values. By sticking to those core values as rigidly as you possibly can, then you should have a safe journey through life. And pontificating, I'd like somebody else to join me on that one.
I agree about planning a journey, because unless you have a set plan, you're going to be working in a very haphazard way. Just one more thing I like to point out is that you need flexibility. What one of the other gentlemen said about value, I don't agree that that is value. I think that you have to be flexible and tailor your services to meet requirements. You have to know what someone wants. And then just coming to what you said earlier, if it's a question of compromising certain core values like your credibility or your competence or your ethics, I think there you have to be rigid. I'll give you an example. A doctor filed an appeal in the High Court against the GMC, and he lost. He did it himself in person, all based on facts. The judge threw it out because you can only appeal on a point of law. Now he wanted to go to the Court of Appeal, and he basically wrote the same points once again, which had been thrown out and which were going to be thrown out again. And he contacted me and he wanted me to legalize his points, put them in better form. I said, I can't do that, because if I do that, anybody will think I'm a fool who doesn't know law, because I'll be seen as drafting a load of rubbish. Facts which have been thrown out, which have no points of appeal, and which are going to be thrown out again. I cannot compromise my credibility just to please him or take a fee from him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I've got to totally agree with you on that. And I think you've actually hit it and summed it up in those few words. If you know something is blatantly wrong and you're broke, and by doing what you're doing, you could earn yourself £10,000, should we say? That is a judgment call on you, on your morals, on your core values. And isn't it better to be a pauper but have honesty than be a rich person who could be picked up and thrown in jail for doing something wrong? And I think that's so important. And I've seen it in business so many times where this sort of thing has happened. You know, there are the likes of Weinstock, who bought over GC 30 odd years ago. Weinstock was known as the asset stripper, one of the first major asset strippers. And all he went for, if he saw a business that was not strong on its balance sheet, but it had phenomenal assets, usually land as well as machinery, but land maybe, he'd go in and buy the business and just asset strip it. get rid of all the staff. The unions stopped him doing that. Now, he had no morals. He was knighted and he made money and he became a lord. But how does he live with himself? I don't know. Very wrong. Okay. How do you clarify your values? What I mean by that is, and I've made some notes here, having a core value-based life is very meaningful. Now, can anybody expand further from that? Without referring to your notes, please, if you don't mind, Steve. Now you've printed it off.
I didn't quite catch the question.
Okay.
How do you clarify your values?
Yeah, having a core value based on life, your life, is very meaningful. So the question is, what else do you think is meaningful with regard to core values?
What we might be looking at, Jeff, is the first part job satisfaction? Is that like a core value?
It will only be a core value if it's a belief that you have got. And that's my opinion.
I think you need to enjoy what you're doing.
Yes.
If you don't enjoy it, the quality will fall.
Absolutely. I could see Joanne's brain going.
Well, no, I was thinking that it would be important to me to know that I was doing it for the right reasons to benefit, well, in my case, to benefit somebody else.
Yeah. Therefore, decision making will be much easier as you go through life. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all down to it. Certainly, your stress levels won't be as high because, you know, it's something that you've done all your life and therefore you'd be comfortable in carrying on. So to me, when you're in a situation of being totally honest with yourself, working within your core values, not straying too much, but you're bound to sort of have a little bit of gray areas every now and again. It is what you're doing. It is the way you're planning your life. It's the way you're setting your goals. It's the way of moving forward. Years ago, some of you are bound to have remembered it in the 60s. It used to be, you know, buy it on tick. Buy your motor car on HP. And people started doing this. So we became then a society, didn't we, of people buy now, pay later, I think the expression was. And then when they brought motor cars in to be able to go on HP, you had to have a physical 25% deposit. And I can remember donkeys years ago when all this was going around, that you took your motor car in as a part exchange, which is worth £100, and all of a sudden they'll give you a value of £500 for it. £500 being 25% of a £2,000 motor car, which, by the way, in the 60s was quite a nice car, but that's by the by. What I'm saying is people then altered their core values, or some did. Instead of saving the 25% up or just saving up for the car, they wanted it now. So we then started in the 60s to become a society of buy now because I want it and I'll pay later. And that's how so many problems, I think, ensued in the country. I'll shut up on that point, but I'm sure you must have heard of that remark, buy now, pay later.
It was on the Never Never, wasn't it? They used to say.
Well, there we are. Yeah, this is it. You know, and there were some horrendous interest charges as well. Okay. I'll just carry on a little bit more because we're okay on time for the moment. If it helps, why not send a copy to me? Sorry, this is asking you to do it. But what would you say I think a few of these have been mentioned, are your freedoms would be one with core values. You'd be happier. You'd have more self-respect. You'd have money. What do you think you're going to gain from being absolutely solid with your core values?
I found that actually you do gain an immense amount of respect, because I have always been like this ever since I was in school. And I just saw myself as an ordinary student doing what I thought was right. But more recently, I connected with old college friends on the internet. And two of them surprised me. I mean, they knew me when they were 17. And one of them said, "You were my inspiration and role model in the college." And another one said, "You were an inspiration to us all." I was surprised because at 17, I never imagined I could be a role model for anyone or an inspiration. You see yourself as a student who's still learning, coming up. You imagine that a role model would be a teacher or someone like that. And I was amazed at the esteem they held me in at that time. No one ever told me then.
Yeah.
But you do actually earn a lot of esteem and respect from people. And I found that now, when they told me this, it made up for everything in life.
Well, quite. Yeah. John, what about you?
Peace of mind.
Sorry, peace of mind.
Peace of mind.
Yeah.
Because if I try and live by my values, whatever the outcome, at least I know that I've tried to do the right thing and I can sleep at night.
Excellent.
So,
Steve.
I'd say my core values can be judged on experience, and that's, how, the value of what I do is solid.
Yeah.
And the experience,
Mm-hmm.
it might not be long time, but there is a value in the length of time.
Yeah, this is true. It's very difficult for me because I'm the one who's running this meeting, but I'm going to be a little strange here, because what I've found is people have come out of the woodwork, if you like, during this COVID period and spoken to me. And excuse me saying it, but you're one of them. You were on one of my business startup courses all those years ago, and you're still in business and you're still talking to me. So consequently, I must have done something in those days. I had another lady, you may have remembered, I don't know whether she's on your course, Barbara Smith, but she contacted me the other day and she's doing quite well in business. And there have been several. So therefore, I must have made an impression. And I'm not saying that because of me, but the point is, what I'm trying to say is, we all do look up to people and we do follow people. I was very proud when my late son wanted to join and follow me as a diver in the diving club all those years ago. And then he wanted to join me on the lifeboat at New Brighton. And now I've got my younger daughter on the lifeboat at New Brighton as well, which makes me proud and makes me feel, I did bring them up reasonably well anyway. And that's the way things are at the moment. And that's the way life is. And I think if we can look back and say to ourselves, I think I did well. I think I did correctly. And I would hope we can all say that in the years to come. Now, I've pontificated yet again, and I think this is important. So we're now getting into a position whereby I don't think we can cover any other bits. Just a tiny bit on the back of the fourth sheet. And what have I got down here? What is my life now? It's important to me, and therefore it's important to my family. Look hard at the list you have made and answer these questions. In other words, what I'm asking you to do in this core value is to read through it. And as I said, I'll send it out and write down what you think your core values are. How do you value your list? How do you stay true to these values? How are these values affecting your life now? How are the values affecting your family at this present time? Now, on the business startup course, Unit 1, it is a case of talking about yourself. And it is a case of you expanding your own feelings, what you've been like, not dissimilar to the core values. So consequently, what I'd like you to do, if you'd be so kind, is email me what you think your core values are and answer those last 4 questions. How do you value your list that I'd like you to prepare? How do you stay true to those values? How are those values affecting your life now? And how are those values affecting your family at this moment in time? Okay, so I do hope you found that reasonably important, educating. I don't know what other words to use, but I'll like you to, wrap it up and tell me a little bit about what you plan to do over the next week, what you would possibly like me to discuss next Wednesday, because as you probably gathered by the little notes I've been sending out, I'm turning it from a pure networking, because there's too many networking things going on, and turning it into more motivational. And on a Monday, I'll be sending out again another one. If you'd like to give me a topic, I'm quite happy to look at my archives, because there's bound to be something written on them, and then I'll expand on them, and then I can talk them through.
It's funny that you mentioned the word networking, because that is what I'm doing next week. Another organization wants to network with me, and we're going to have a face-to-face meeting on Zoom, actually, which they're going to organize, as long as my internet is okay. Now, it would be useful to have some tips on the best way to network and how to do it face-to-face. What are the things you need to keep in mind when you network?
Right.
So it would be very helpful if you could give us something along those lines.
Steve, would that help you? Because you need to be more positive.
Do I know?
Yes.
Yeah, networking with people on Zoom. How to develop networking is good topic.
Okay.
For me, for next week or this week, I'm just doing this SWOT analysis. I don't even this SWOT analysis thing.
Oh, right. Well done.
So there's loads of writing on that, but I've not worked right through it yet.
No.
I'm going to send that off to you, Jeff.
Right.
And
Okay.
the core values, I'll answer them as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So goals. I'm sort of no. I'm not an indecisive person. I do like to know exactly if I'm making a decision.
Right. I won't bring goals into it for this occasion. Joanne.
Well, I chose the last subject, so I'm happy to go with the networking, because I think we can all do with improving.
I am absolutely so pleased. You've all agreed. You've all said that without me even opening my mouth, because I do happen to have a total presentation on networking that I've run a few times. I will need to alter it. and mate the actual face-to-face networking group and the Zoom networking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's
It is
important.
different, yeah.
Yeah, because I cannot see networking over Zoom or another platform changing in the future. I can see it carrying on. And I would like to see it develop more, because I get a big kick out of meeting a group of people without moving from my study, because it makes it much easier. You know, there's somebody who sent me an invitation the other day to join him on a networking he's doing. You can either go at 6:30 in the morning or 9:30 in the morning. I don't want to go on either of those. Now, Len, who I think few of you have known, Len Rainford, he used to run a lunchtime networking one. And I actually, you know, spoke at a few of them. In fact, there's a YouTube one I did at Aintree Racecourse for his group of people. But to me, that was sensible. That was a nice 3-course lunch. And in the morning, there was a speaker. You had the networking over the lunch, and you had chatting afterwards. So it was a good 3.5 hours. And I think Len only charged about 20 quid or something for the meal and everything. It was brilliant. Now that to me is networking. But getting up at 6:30 in the morning, driving 25 miles and starting a networking, that's for the young people. I'm sorry, it's not for the likes of me. But there is a place for networking. There's a place for these networking groups, yes, there always will be. But there is also a place to network. We're networking to a point. And I think this is excellent. Okay, so yes, so I will put out networking for next week. Okay, a good choice, a good choice. Okay, Joanne. Yes.
I have a task for you. I was on the blog, your blog, and I was trying to click the business startup course link, and it's not working at the moment. It's
okay. Well, if you actually go onto the go onto the page, you will actually see, put up an hour ago, only an hour ago, a link in the navigation bar of Business Startup.
It's been fixed.
No, it was never up there in the first place. It's a complicated one.
Okay.
I've been doing it, but I've been doing it in the background.
Yeah.
Because I needed to tidy my website up. I think I've told you all before, I've been altering it. So literally, one of the things I did, where are we here? Putting up the workshops and the networking, motivation and networking, alter the navigation bar, set up business startup page, alter the add to the navigation bar. So that was done. It's not quite finished because I want to put all the units front covers up there so people can actually see that there are 8 units altogether. So so people will know what's involved. At the moment, anybody on the networking, on the business startup, know that there are units but don't know what's in the units, and that's a bit naughty of me. So okay, so within the week all the units will be up there, okay, of what each one of them entails.
Yeah, it was the one on the blog though, Jeff, that it didn't even take us back to the other tab, which is on your website, which says the business startup, and it's got all the stuff on it. Right. It just said C. It was linking to your C drive, and I can't get to that.
Okay. No, you can't, and I won't let you neither.
No.
No, it is, and I'll be working on it again this afternoon and over the course of the next week, and I shall be putting up all the units on there, not the full units, but the page units and what each of the units entail, or what each of the units are covering. Because not being horrible, I don't want to give everybody the information for nothing.
No.
I only want to give it to the people who pay me.
Yeah.
I think that's fair enough.
Yes, it
Yep.
is.
Okay, I will do that for you. I will sort the networking out for next week. And I would like to try and get a few more people on here just to expand it a little bit. Because if I can get up to about 10 people on here, we'll have a lovely cross-fertilization of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the important thing. And questions can be answered, solutions can be get to problems, which is what it's all about. Is that okay for everybody?
Yes.
Excellent then. So I will bid you farewell and say goodbye. You've all been given your homework. So if you'd like to send it to me, and the only one who hasn't got a copy of the whole thing is Joanne, yes?
That's right.
You will have it afterwards, Joanne. I will send it to you.
Thank you.
Okay then. Take care and thank you for joining me. Look after yourself. Joanne, I'd like a quick word with you if I may, if that's
Okay.
all right. Could you hang on for the moment?
Mhm.
All right then, everybody. You take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye now. Bye.